Zoning administrator comments, no comments. There's a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Gail Engels, Bureau Chief Resource Management, comments, no comments. There's a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Matt Shipley, Carroll County Environmental Health Department. Proposed use may not be acceptable unless it is demonstrated that there is an adequate water supply and adequate area for the installation of an initial and two replacement septic systems for the proposed use and any existing uses of this property. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various agencies from Scott Newell, State Highway Administration, comments, no comment nor objection. There's a comment memo to Joe Vance's request from Deborah Bowers, Program Manager, Ag Land Preservation Program. Comments, none. Hearing notice was posted for earlier hearing January 20th, 2020 by Scott Robinson, Zoning Inspector. And then there is a request for an expansion of a conditional use for an existing kennel. There's a prior BZA case 5718. There is a I see a memorandum of lease between Vanessa K. Armstrong. See, Vanessa K. Armstrong, landlord, and we've gone to the dog's tenant. And it looks like Vanessa K. Armstrong for both lines. I see a photograph, pet pampering prospers despite the recession. And I see, well, there's a picture of a plaque in here. I'll just show it. That's in the file. I would ask that the file be introduced into evidence.
Okay, do I have a motion to enter the file into evidence?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor of entering the file into evidence, just raise your hand. Okay, we will enter the file into evidence. Before we get started here, let me go through the process that we're going to use. Mr. Minash is the attorney representing the applicant here. So we will give him the opportunity to give an opening statement, call witnesses, and then after each witness's testimony, people that have an interest in the case will have the opportunity to ask questions of the testimony that that individual just gave. Upon Mr. Minash's presentation, then members of the community will have the ability to weigh in on the case, and then they will please stay there so that both the board and Mr. Minash or the applicant can ask questions of the testimony that you gave. So that's the process we're going to use. I'm going to ask that if you intend on testifying here today, that you raise your right hand and take an oath. So if you plan on testifying in this case, okay, we got a couple of you. So do you swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And just give me a head nod. Very good. Thank you. With that, Mr. Minash, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. And again, with your witness, make sure that they state their name, address, and occupation, and record their last name.
Good morning, and thank you very much. I have with me today Vanessa Armstrong and Jennifer Norris and Paige, which I don't know. Dunn. Paige Dunn is the manager. Vanessa Norris is the assistant manager, and Vanessa is the owner and operator. The board, this matter has come before the board twice before, and this is the third time. And the first time was when the use was first initiated. It was in 2009. Since then, the use has prospered and grown. Well, actually, it has intensified. And I'm going to draw a slight distinction here and just talk about it briefly. Ordinarily, when you approve a conditional use, it doesn't matter, the conditional use, let's assume it's a store. It doesn't matter how many customers that store has. The more customers that the store has is no significance to you. It's only when the store enlarges physically that it comes in there and asks for an enlargement of a enlargement of a conditional use. Kennels are treated slightly different. The intensification of the use is considered an enlargement of the conditional use, and we're here today to seek that enlargement, or actually an intensification. We did that before in 2013, and again, the board was gracious enough to grant the enlargement of the number of dogs, and today we're here seeking a further enlargement to the maximum, I believe, that we can accommodate reasonably. I'm going to go introduce Ms. Armstrong and have her tell you about the use, and then proceed accordingly. So with that, I'd ask that Vanessa, can you unmute your? Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me? Can the board hear her? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We're all sitting in the same room, so we have different monitors, but so Vanessa, could you state your name, address, and occupation for the record, please?
My name is Vanessa K. Armstrong. My address is 1219 Old Tommytown Road, Westminster, Maryland. And I am the owner operator of We've Gone to the Dogs LLC.
Okay. Could you give us the 2-minute spiel about how you, what We've Gone to the Dogs is, describing it to the board, please?
Yes. We are a doggy daycare, overnight boarding kennel. We also do a small grooming business. And occasionally I do some training with dogs. We're located on a little over 7 acres. On 2 sides, we are surrounded by farmland. And the other 2 sides there is one house across the street from me and another home to the side of my property that is not visible from my property due to a road that is gravel road that's part of my property, and it's heavily tree lined. We operate 7 days a week. Weekdays, we open at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. Weekends, we open at 9 a.m. and close at 5 p.m. I live on the property, so that, you know, I do supervise what's going on. Let's see, I have 8 full-time and 2 part-time employees. I should also mention that my newest neighbor, as you face my home to the right, Mr. Delaney's old property, I now employ their 15-year-old daughter part-time as one of my employees. So they're fairly happy with us.
Okay, I'll take it. Okay, so, do you board on the weekends?
We do board on the weekends. We don't do daycare on the weekends. We only have boarders on the weekends. So there's generally about a quarter of the dogs we normally have on weekdays on the weekends.
And, you have owned and operated the facility since its inception, is that correct?
I have.
Okay, and since that time to the present, have you ever received any complaints from anyone regarding noise, traffic, anything at all?
I have not.
Okay. In fact, your kennel has been received Best of Carroll County, is that correct?
Several times, yes.
Several times, okay. And you've been growing in popularity, and is that due to how well you run your operation?
I believe that it is. We don't do any advertising and haven't for many years. It's strictly word of mouth, and the demand keeps growing to the point that we now have a waiting list.
So could you describe how the process works from a person wanting to have you kennel the dog to actually arriving with the dog on a date to have the dog stay in the daycare or the kennel?
Yes, so for daycare, because we're an open kennel, so we have as I said, a little over 7 acres. We have it divided into 11 different play yards. And we each take a group of dogs and supervise them, play with them, train them, etc. During the day while they're at daycare. Prior to them coming to us, they need to fill out an application, and they need to have an evaluation done at our kennel for 1 day, so that we know that their dog is suitable for this kind of daycare. We can't offer it to dogs that might be aggressive or a little too forceful. So I've actually had to turn down a few dogs, not very many, but and then we group our dogs according to size and temperament, and that tends to keep things pretty peaceful most of the time. There is some noise, and that is primarily between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. when the dogs are all arriving. They're very excited to get to us. They're usually barking in the car as they come down the road, and as they come into the kennel, they're just happy. So they're making a lot of noise. But then by 9 a.m., we all go into our groups, and once we're out in the field with our groups, things are very quiet. Considering the number of dogs, I think it's extremely quiet. And that's sort of what we do.
You have also a vet on call, is that correct?
Yes, Nancy Powell, Maryland Mobile Vet, is our vet on call. She has a brick and mortar building not far from us, and also has a mobile vet service. And we've had a very good relationship with her since we opened.
And all your dogs must have proper updated veterinary care and
Yes,
shots?
we actually have a new app on our computer called Ginger, and that allows us to know pulling up information on each dog. We know how old they are, their address, their parents, what vet they go to, their vaccinations and when they expire, etc.
Members of the board, I'm going to refer to the aerial photograph that was part of the record. If you have that in front of you, I don't know. Vanessa, you've seen this aerial photograph before, have you not?
I have.
Okay. And does it accurately depict your property there?
It does.
Is that the property that's circled in red?
It is.
Okay. And right where it says AG there, is that a farm that surrounds your property?
That's correct.
And below that to the far right, is that a house there?
Yes.
Do you know who lives there?
Yes, it's, the Neckers own the large home that used to be Bill Delaney's, and their daughter and son-in-law are living in the farmhouse that is nearer to Old Tonytown Road.
And that's what we're seeing there is the farmhouse?
Well, actually, you're seeing the farmhouse, the barn, and yes, that's right, just the farmhouse and
Okay.
the barn.
Okay, the actual Delaney, Farmer Delaney house is off the picture.
Is off there.
Okay, so it's further away.
Yes.
So that family owns both homes?
Yes.
And do you know anything about them?
I actually have known Darlene Necker through the horse world. I had a horse farm in Howard County prior to my moving to Westminster. And she worked at a saddle shop that I frequented, and so I know her well. Her granddaughter, Haley, is now working for us part-time.
Okay. Now, the yellow line, is that Route 140?
It is,
And is that a heavily trafficked road?
it is.
Okay, and is there a lot of noise that you hear from that road?
Yes, there's a large number of trucks that come through that road,
You can,
motorcycles on the weekends.
you can hear it from your property?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so it actually, can you say that ambient noise in the background?
Yes.
And is there a house between 140 and Old Tawnytown Road?
Directly across, a little bit, directly across from the kennel, there is a home.
And is that, you know that neighbor?
I know that neighbor well, and they have 2 dogs of their own and chickens, and we get along very well.
Okay. Is there another house that is nearby your property?
There is one as you face my property to the right down a gravel road. As I said, that is part of my property. There is an easement granted to.
Okay, we don't need to talk about it.
Okay. So yes, there is a home there across that gravel.
Okay, and is that the house that's screened by the woods that you referred to?
Yes.
And it's on the north side of the picture? Is that,
Yes,
okay. So on the north side of the picture, there's a house that's screened by some foliage and trees.
trees.
Okay. And the fields that you keep the dogs in looks like they're surrounded by some woods.
Yes, there's a heavy tree line all the way around the property.
Okay. So those are really the only 4 or 5 homes that are in the immediate area, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, does your kennel, in your opinion, at the present time, have any adverse effect on the adjoining property owners' property values?
No, in fact, when the Delaney's sold their property, they got a very, very good price for it,
Okay.
and actually had several bidders.
Do you think the increase of the number of dogs will affect the property values in any way?
No, I don't.
Okay. You've said that you had a waiting list of dogs. We started this application in 2009, is that correct?
In 2019.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 2019. And due to the COVID and other personal reasons, we've delayed coming before the board until now. But during that period of time, you've had a large demand for your services.
Yes, and in fact, since filing the application, I believe this is due to COVID, a lot of people adopted or purchased dogs while they were home, and now are looking for services like we offer. So we do have a lengthy waiting list.
We can remove the board from the screen, so if that's appropriate, it doesn't need to be up there now. Thank you. explain, have you experienced, any, any growth in the immediate area? Any additional homes being built?
No, basically everything around me is in agriculture.
Will there be any, additional, if you increase the number of, dogs, would that have any effect on any of that?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Um, Do you generate any smoke or odors or,
No, we do not.
you do generate some noise?
We do generate some noise,
Okay.
dogs do bark.
But the nearest property owners are fairly far away and the barking is not all day long.
It is not all day long, and we really try to keep it to a minimum as best we can, and we've never had a complaint about it.
And the addition of additional dogs, will that have any significant impact on the noise at all?
Well, in fact, we have, anticipating this hearing, we have had more dogs, and really, I don't notice a difference living right there.
You said you had 8 full-time and 2 part-time employees, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And will you increase the number of employees or would that be sufficient to take care of the needs?
No, we would have to increase staff.
Okay. Could you talk about your staff for a minute, please?
I can. I have a wonderful team right now. Most of the folks that are working for me have been with me multiple years. My manager, Paige, who's here with us today, I've known since she was 14 years old. We've worked together on and off in the horse business and now in the dog business. I am making this application largely because I do pay my staff well. I pay a living wage. No one makes, well, I should say everyone makes well over minimum wage. 3 of my employees have just purchased their first homes. And in order to continue to be able to pay these people like I do and offer health insurance and sick days, which I do, and not increase my prices terribly, I'm going to have to increase volume. That's the way I'm going to be able to survive and keep this going.
Will you be making any physical changes to the property
No,
with the increase of the number of dogs?
no,
Okay, so there will be no changes to the property as it currently stands?
that's correct.
Okay. I should take a moment to go back in time, if I may. When you first applied for this use in 2009, you had other animals on the property, did you not?
Yes, I had a couple of horses and a donkey and some sheep.
Okay. And you no longer have those on the property?
That's
Okay.
correct. They've all moved on.
And you have sufficient land to accommodate this number of dogs without any adverse effects of crowding?
Yes.
Okay. And is it traffic, the people bringing in the dogs? Do some people bring in more than 1 dog at a time?
Yes, we have clients that have as many as 5 dogs that they bring.
Okay. And the trips generated into the facility, are they staggered a little bit?
They are, because we have drop off in the morning from 7 a.m. till 9 a.m. So people are staggered throughout that time period. We've never had any problems with traffic or accidents,
Okay.
except my staff running into a fence once, but
And is it the same for when the people pick up their pets?
it is. People start picking up around 3 in the afternoon, and that goes on until about 6:45.
Do you anticipate that to be the same when you increase the number of dogs?
Yes.
Okay. In your opinion, does the increase in number of dogs have any adverse effects at all on any of the adjoining property owners?
I don't believe so, no.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have for Ms. Armstrong.
Okay, does anyone from the public have any questions of Ms. Armstrong's testimony? Okay, seeing none. Board members, any questions of Ms. Armstrong's testimony? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Manash, do you have any further witnesses?
Yes, I have, I'd like to have Page,
Jonathan?
no, Page.
Okay.
It
Mr.
looks
Wertz
like,
is trying to speak. Looks like
Dennis
he's
March
muted.
has questions.
I'm sorry, who?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you, Dennis. Go ahead.
Dennis, check your gear wheel in your go-to-meeting and make sure that your microphone's chosen. You might not have that highlighted, the correct microphone. We can't hear you. There's a gear wheel on your top right-hand side of your window there on the screen. Click on there and you'll see microphone. Make sure you have the correct microphone chosen so that we can hear you. No, we can't hear you. We're not hearing anything.
If you can hear us, then you can call in and speak. If we can't get you this way, you can call in and speak that way.
I hear typing, but I don't think that's him.
And it's not me, I can't type that fast anymore.
Okay, can you hear me now?
We've got you. You're on. Thanks.
Okay. You said there would be an increase in the number of employees. Do you know what that increase would be? In other words, how many full-time,
Do you know
how many full-time employees and part-time employees do you anticipate?
I would anticipate probably 2 more full-time employees, perhaps a couple of part-time during the summer.
Okay, so how many employees would there be on the maximum shift?
5 to 6.
Okay. The reason I ask, when I visited the site, the parking area looked small to me, and I didn't see any marked parking spaces. And I mean, do you have enough parking? It didn't look like there was much parking.
There's not much parking, but because we have a very efficient system of getting the dogs out of the vehicles and into the building, people are really only here minutes. And so parking has not been an issue.
Where do the employees park? Where do the employees park?
In the employees park, we have a gravel drive that goes up to a garage that I have, and the employees park up there.
Okay, so the open parking area along the road, none of the employees park there.
That's correct.
And I guess, do you or your attorney know that the number of spaces that would be required? In other words, that the code, as I read it, says 3 spaces are required plus the number of employees on the maximum shift. So that would be 11 parking spaces. Do you have 11 parking spaces?
Yes, we do.
Okay. The other concern I had, and I've been to the site twice, once early in the year, and then about a week ago. And to me, when I was leaving the site in my car, to me, there was poor sight distance to the west, looking along Tawnytown Road from the from the parking area. Has anybody ever, and I guess in particular, it's like a civil engineer or a traffic engineer, ever looked at the site distance and determined that the site distance is adequate?
Yes, in the original variance hearing, that was all addressed.
Mr. Wertz,
Yes,
if I may, can I elaborate on that?
yes.
Okay. The state highway, your original plan was to have a horseshoe type entrance and exit, is that correct?
That is correct.
And state highway during the site plan review process reviewed all that because it's an entrance onto a state road, is that right?
That's correct. In fact, we had, originally, there was a horseshoe driveway there. And we were asked to redesign that, and we hired engineers to do that. And in fact, several different drawings were required, and this is what we were required to do.
So it's been approved by state highway.
That's correct.
Well, I'm hoping they looked at the site distance in particular, but you're
Yeah.
saying nobody's ever expressed a concern or about the site distance?
The only concern that I've had is when the weeds grow up on the side there. So I do try to keep them cut down, even though that's not really my property. Other than that, we've never had an accident in the road, and I've never had complaint from neighbors.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, and Melvin, you might wish to speak to this. Not this time, but in the previous case, on our site visit, we went up on Old County Town Road and came down and looked at it, and it was not as ominous as it appeared to be from the property itself. Right, Melvin?
Yes, on our site visit that we had back in February, or I guess it was in March, we left and went towards Town. We went westerly and went and turned around, maybe down at Fountain somewhere, and came back up. And what amazed me is the sight distance issues that I thought were there as we came up the hill towards your facility. The sight distance was actually a whole lot better than what I had anticipated. So and that's one of the reasons I think it's important that we do these site visits. And I did that intentionally because I was very concerned when we looked in March, sight distance issues there. But after traveling that and literally going between 5 and 10 mile an hour up the road, the sight distance was not nearly as was not the obstacle that I thought it was upon first glance. Okay, any other questions board members have of Ms. Armstrong? Very good. Mr. Minash, could you want to have another?
Yes, I'd like to ask Jennifer Dunn. Paige. I'm getting too old for this. Paige Dunn. Paige, you're the manager. Could you please state your name?
My name is Paige Dunn.
Okay, hold on. We're experiencing.
That's called people's feedback.
I'm gonna go.
You're close quarters there.
Okay, Paige, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Board members hear me? Okay, state your name and occupation.
My name is Paige Dunn, and I'm the manager of the dogs.
Paige, how long have you worked for Vanessa?
Almost 3 years.
And could you tell the board members the type of care that the dogs get in your custody?
Extremely good care. We all very much love what we do there.
Dogs get in your custody?
Extremely good care. We all very much love what we do there, and we very much love these dogs. And to be successful on the property and have fun and be safe. So we all are on the same, we be on the same, obese and be respectful of humans and other dogs. We've all been trained the exact same, it's very consistent, and that is why
How do you keep noise or barking dogs from barking?
we stay as everybody knows the word to use is quiet, and we sit them down, we make them focus, and we tell them to be quiet, and we keep this up until they learn what the word quiet means, and it works.
I don't have any other questions at this, but the board might have, if the board might have questions regarding the operation. Wanted to ask any questions regarding the operation.
Okay, anyone from the public or board members have any questions of Ms. Dunn's testimony? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Manash, would you have another witness?
Well, I do, but I don't want to take the board's time, and it's just going to be additional duplicitous information. So I'd like to basically, I think that's our application.
Okay, very good. Does anyone from the public have any testimony?
Lower your volume.
Spending a little extra time since I can only see you virtually. I'm assuming that no one has any testimony. Presentation of testimony and evidence is now closed and summations are in order. Mr. Minaj, any summation comments?
Yes. Give me 1 second because I have some technical difficulty here. Okay, basically, members of the board, this is a stellar operation. This is a situation where, but for the way the law is written, we would not be here. The law would not require a business owner to come before you and ask for permission to serve more customers generally. Only in this situation, but this is a stellar situation. The location of the property is unique. It is, you couldn't have picked a more suitable location for a kennel. It is surrounded by very, very few homes and farmland and road. It generates very little adverse effects, if any. The adjoining property owners are not opposed to this application. They have not voiced any opposition. There's been never any complaints, and there's no reason to think that it will not continue to operate in this fashion. This is a responsible business that pays taxes, hires people, and is an asset to the community. It's been voted as a #1 kennel on several occasions. It is succeeding, and every effort should be made to support that type of business. There's been no testimony or no evidence or no indication of any adverse effects that the proposed request would have on the support adjoining property owners. I would ask that you favorably decide the matter and approve the request as requested.
Okay, the hearing and record of this case is now closed, and in accordance with the Open Meetings Act of Maryland, the board will now consider the case. Board members.
I'll go first if nobody
I
wants.
think this is a no-brainer.
I agree with you, Gary. Lisa, what's your thought?
I think the location appears to be ideal. The operation's obviously been successful for many years. There's no complaints and there's no opposition. So I am prepared to vote in favor of granting the expansion.
And traffic, oncoming traffic, not an issue.
I don't hear anything that's an issue. Period.
Well, that's true.
Mr. Wertz?
Well, as I said before, I didn't think the site distance was all that great. Now, the day I was there, I did notice the grass along the bank was very high. I think if that were kept trim, other vegetation were kept trimmed, that would definitely improve the site distance. So if nobody else feels there's a site distance problem and this has been addressed previously, and my understanding is this has to go through the site plan process. So I'm assuming that, the parking and even the site distance would be looked at that time. So if that's the case, then I don't have any objections.
From our previous visit, site distance is not an issue. Although on the property, it did appear that it would be, but when we went up Old Tawny Town Road and came back, it clearly was not.
Yeah, what Gary said is you had to experience it. It was unbelievable how much further you could see the entrance. You could see where cars would be pulling out from the facility further down the road than what you anticipated you could see if you were just out. So again, I really appreciate the effort that we, all of us board members, take time to go and look at the site visits, because that's something that really can't be explained unless you experienced it.
I have a question just from, sorry. Well, I have a question just for my clarification. Is site distance within our purview?
Sure, you can always consider it.
Thank you.
But it'll definitely be looked at during the site plan process. Okay, board members, do we have a motion?
Dick, are you doing it, or would you like me to do it?
I move that we approve. I move that in case 6219, we approve the expansion of an existing kennel to 75 dogs and or cats.
I second. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, raise your hand, or in the case of Gary, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. It's 5-0 decision. Our oral decision will become final upon a written decision, which will be issued within 30 days unless otherwise extended by this board. The board's decision may be appealed by filing a petition for judicial review with the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Carroll County in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 200, Title 7 of the Maryland Rules of Procedure. The appeal must be filed within 30 days of the date of the board's written decision. Thank you very much, and we will adjourn this hearing. And if everyone's agreeable, we'll just go right straight into our second case for the day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Isaac, was the name of the employee Jennifer Page Dunn or Page Dunn?
Page Dunn. Jennifer Norris was the other employee. And
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Steve meeting.
Mr. Dixon, I see Mr. Simmons has left his chair. Can you take about a 5-minute break and come back?
Okay,
Okay, we'll come back in about 5 minutes. Our second case of the day, it is case number 6266. And Mr. Dixon, would you go ahead and introduce the file for us, please?
Okay, case 6266, a request for an alteration of an existing non-conforming use for a robotics school office. The site is located at 3233 Murray Road, Finksburg, Maryland, on property zone C, Conservation District in Election District 4 by Partnership and Inspiration for Engineering, Education, and Entrepreneurship, Inc., trade in care of Thomas D. Mills. Code of Public Local Laws and Ordinances, Section 158.033B. A site visit is tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, October 14, 2020, at approximately 9:40 a.m. In the file of this matter, we have the following documents. Site visit minutes, October 14, 2020, Melvin Bale, Gary Dunkelberger, Dick Simmons went. October 13, 2020, Dennis Wirtz went. And October 19, 2020, Lisa Eckert went to the property. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Jay Voigt. He has an attached comment. The existing non-conforming use is not expanding in area. They are expanding office space within that existing non-conforming use to allow for a classroom, training room, and use of the office for a classroom. The board will have to determine if having a second non-conforming use in the same area as the first non-conforming use is allowable. The code does not say if two non-conforming uses are allowed to coexist within each other. Nor does it say that the BZA can add a second non-conforming use to a site. The code is not clear on that on either issues. I would not recommend approval of the request. There is a response to Joe Vance's request from Tom Harris, permits and inspections. Accessibility shall be in compliance with the Maryland Accessibility Code. All comments from the plans review comment letter dated September 1st, 2020 shall be addressed. There is a October 5th, 2020 letter from Stephen A. Lockhart, PhD, Superintendent of Schools, to the Carroll County Board of Zoning Appeals. The superintendent writes in support of the applicant, Partnership and Inspiration for Engineering, Education, and Entrepreneurship, Inc., in case 6266. The all-volunteer 501c3 education, not-for-profit PIE 3 was founded in 2011 to encourage and promote education in science, technology, engineering, and math for youth in the Carroll County, Maryland area, and to encourage such youth to pursue education and careers in science, technology, engineering, and math. It has done this through numerous K-12 robotic teams and programs, including robotic summer sessions for the elementary school students, top spinners for third grade students, and robotics training for teachers, among others. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Hannah Weber, Comprehensive Planner, Bureau of Planning. Ms. Weber says, the above referenced BZA case has been reviewed for consistency with the policies and recommendations contained in the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan, as amended in 2019, the Carroll County Water and Sewer Plan, and other functional plans. The staff finding is that this request is not inconsistent with the 2014 Carroll County Master Plan as amended in 2019 and would not have an adverse effect on the current use of the property due to the fact the current use of the property is currently commercial. There is a October 5th, 2020 letter from Linda D. Eisenberg, Secretary to the Planning Commission, to the board. After having reviewed the information contained in the attached analysis, the facts as presented in the application, the relevant portions of the plan, and in accordance with the provisions set forth in the land use article, this request for an expansion of a non-conforming use, if granted, is not inconsistent with the policies, timing of the implementation of the plan, timing of development, timing of rezoning, development patterns, land uses, and densities or intensities. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Matt Shipley, Carroll County Environmental Health Department. Proposed use may not be acceptable unless it is demonstrated that there is an adequate water supply and adequate area for the installation of an initial and 2 replacement septic systems for the proposed use and any existing uses of this property. Site plan will be required. There is a September 29th, 2020 letter from Greg W. Kahlert, President, the Kahlert Foundation, to the board. He's writing in support of the applicant. There's a September 28, 2020 notice of public hearing for the case. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Christopher P. Henn, Bureau Chief, Resource Management. Comments? No comment. There's a response to Joe Vance's request to various agencies from Clay Black, Bureau Chief, Development Review. As this is a request for an expansion of a non-conforming use, Chapter 155 does not require a site plan. Hearing notice was posted September 22nd, 2020 by Scott Robinson, zoning inspector. There is a response to Joe Vance's request to various state and local agencies from Deborah Bowers, program manager, Ag Land Preservation Program. Comments? None. And then there is the application for an expansion of an existing non-conforming use. There's some photographs in the file. There's information, including photographs from Carroll County Public Schools STEM Impact, Pathway Summer Camp, 11th Annual Roar of the Robots, FLL and FLL Junior, Open House and Community Events. I would ask that the file be entered into evidence.
Do we have a motion to enter the file into evidence?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, do we have a second? Dennis, I saw your lips move, but I didn't hear you. You were having technical difficulties, but I did see you lift second. So we will enter, with all those in favor of entering the file into evidence, raise your hand, please. Okay, we will enter the file into evidence. Before we get started.
Mr. Davis, one of the things you read was someone who stated they would not recommend approval. Who was that, please?
Jay Boyd.
Thank you. Did he give a reason?
I read the letter with his
Did he give
reason.
a reason?
I read the letter with his reasoning.
Okay, with that, let me go ahead and explain how our BZA meetings, the process that we take during our BZA meetings. The applicant will have the opportunity to present their case and call witnesses. After each witness gives their testimony, members of the public and also the board will have the opportunity to ask questions of their testimony and only of their testimony. After the presentation of the case, then members of the community will have the opportunity to present information based on this case to the board, and then they, like the applicant's witnesses, will have the opportunity to be questioned on their testimony. So before we get started, I'd like to ask anyone that is going to testify or has any intention of testifying to please raise your right hand and take the oath. Do you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that this testimony you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Just give me a head nod. Okay, very good. So I don't see where there's any legal counsel, but I'm assuming there's going to be someone who's going to present. Okay, and I'd like to remind everyone, before you speak, please state your name, address, and occupation, and for the record, spell your last name. Unmute your microphone, sir. Hi. Okay, Ms. Young is being unmuted, but sir, we don't have you, and I can see you're reaching for, there we go.
Okay, good. Somebody must have done that for me. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. My name is Kevin Roblack. I live at 5806 Artisan Drive in Eldersburg, Maryland. I am an attorney with Whiteford, Taylor, and Preston, and I am appearing this morning on behalf of the applicant, which is near and dear to me as my son has been a participant in this program for many, many years. And so I am volunteering my time this morning to assist the applicant. We appear before the board this morning requesting this expansion and modification of the non-conforming use for a business office space or training room for the applicant, which is a charitable organization that educates kids in Carroll County about science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, often referred to as STEM. After leasing a building on the property, the permitting office held up the permits to finish the walls and install electrical outlets and an ADA compliant bathroom because it appears that only half of the building is zoned as office space as a result of a 1984 case before the board that enlarged the building at that time and approved the non-conforming use. So the area that we seek to improve currently remains as a contractor storage use, and we would like the board to approve a business office or training center use for that current garage storage area. So with that introduction, I'd like to call as our witness, Ms. Rose Young, to present evidence in support of the request.
Okay, Ms. Young, state your name, address, and occupation, and spell for the record your last name.
Rose Mary Young, 1797 Nature's Way, Woodbine, Maryland, Y-O-U-N-G.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Young, what is Partnership and Inspiration for Engineering, Education, and Entrepreneurship?
It's a nonprofit organization founded in 2011 that focuses on education in the areas of STEM, as you've defined. Specifically, we're a community-based group. We build and compete robots in a national program known as FIRST programs to increase science and engineering interest, to prepare kids for college and the workforce, and especially in technology and engineering fields.
Okay, and is that the entity that's the applicant here today?
Yes, it is.
What is your position with that organization?
I'm a founding board member and current treasurer and director.
And does the applicant lease the building that is the subject of this hearing located at 3233 Murray Road, Building A?
Yes, we do.
And if you turn in the application document to the color picture, is there a picture of the building that is subject to the lease in the application?
Yes, there is.
Okay, and if you turn the page to the aerial view, can you identify where that building is on that picture?
Yes, it is marked Building A. It's in the center of the page. It has a white roof.
And if you turn the page again, can you describe for us what that picture shows?
Yes, it's a broader overhead picture. It shows the other buildings in the area, including Eagle Transfer Services.
When did the organization enter into the lease for the building?
We signed this lease in July of this year.
And can you tell the board how that lease came about?
We had been leasing a space. Space is always something that we need. We had been leasing a space in Finksburg at another location. However, with the onset of the pandemic, we were unable to negotiate a reduced rent in that space, but we had reduced revenues. So we had to leave the space. In our search, we came across this building on Murray Road, which seemed to fit our needs very well.
And after the lease was signed, was the expectation that the organization would refurbish the garage area for use?
Yes, it was. And because we work year round, there was installation and heating and air conditioning that was discussed to be installed in that space.
And did the organization seek permits for those improvements?
Yes.
And as part of that process, is that when the organization learned that there may be a use restriction associated with the building?
Yes, it was.
And is that why we're here before the board today to go forward with the organization's intended purpose and use of that building?
Yes, it is.
All right, just briefly, give us some background. What does the organization do?
So we provide these STEM-related programs throughout Carroll County. Mainly, we mentor and teach students, kids actually in these programs that meet in middle school and high school to build robots, program them, use and develop their computer skills, computer-aided design, and then they compete in competitions that are all over the region, Maryland, DC, Virginia region, such as at McDonough School when we've been to the University of Maryland. We've been to other universities that have hosted events. And we also do other activities and events around the community. But mainly what we're doing is preparing students to compete the robots in these events.
And what, can you kind of describe for us who the students are that you provide these services to?
Yes, we're open to all students that meet the age requirements for the programs. And so that would be grades actually 7 to 12 for these programs that we host within our building. And we also provide support services for students in younger age groups that meet at other locations, usually, in people's homes, where some of these older students provide some of the support. But we're open to all students, homeschooled, private school, public school, and we have usually a mix of students.
And do you do community events as well?
Yes, we do. We actually have one coming up on Halloween in conjunction with the library. We partner with the libraries. That is part of the Maryland STEM Festival that's going on now. This is our 3rd or 4th year in being involved in that. We provide science fairs. We take our robot to science fairs at various schools. We do offsite camps. We work with Freedom Area Rec Council to arrange for space for our offsite camps. We help scouting. We visit scout troops, provide demonstrations and help them with their badges. And we use other locations that are available to us through Freedom Area Rec, churches and various other spaces for our public events.
How do you interact with the county education and recreation systems?
So outside of Carroll County, many schools have programs within the schools. We've not had that in the past, ever since I started back in 2006. So we pull from students in a variety of schools and backgrounds. but we've developed a partnership. We have a formal partnership with the Board of Education with Carroll County Public Schools. And with their support, we have started to expand programs. We provide training and support to bring those programs into the schools, as well as providing the opportunity for students from different schools that don't have programs or that wish to expand their participation to work with us. We have been working with the school system for many years and recently have gotten a stronger partnership with our superintendent to try to bring more programs into the schools. We're also an affiliate of the Freedom Area Rec Council, and in past years, it's been our method to offer our programs just like a sports program through Freedom Area Rec. And of course, this year is a little bit different because everyone's having difficulty running any of their programs due to the limitations, but we are still an affiliate. I was just at a meeting for Freedom Area Rec last week, and they look upon us as another program that they can use to support the community.
And you mentioned the formal affiliation with the County Board of Education. Can you tell us what the current state of affairs is with respect to your participation with the County Board of Education?
I work very closely with the STEM coordinator in the county as part of our agreement. We provide connections to trained individuals to help support teachers in schools. We provide activities that our students have put together, a Lego activity that's useful for training for students. We're working with him to distribute that to third grade students. Instead of doing it in person, we're making a video presentation to share. And this is being done by the students as part of their participation in the robotics program, because it's more than building robots. It's doing this sort of inspirational work to give other students a taste of engineering, get them interested in science and math. So we're working to coordinate that. And we've also worked together on grant applications for 4 years from MSDE that have benefited both the school system and our group. And we currently are waiting to hear from our fourth application for another grant to continue to grow the program in conjunction with the school system. But we've been working much more closely over the past few years, especially as we get these grants together with the school system.
Okay, let's switch gears and talk a little bit about the building and how it would be used if the board approves the request. Can you tell us what currently exists in the building?
So in the half of the building that already is approved for use, there are several office space on the second floor that is suitable already for some of the work to be done with some of the groups that work on smaller robots. And we have some groups that are using that space since it was already suitable and already approved. There is a bathroom and several meeting areas on that second floor. On the first floor, there is a storage area that includes some water, a well that we do not have access to. Some of the equipment there is maintained by the landlord, but there is like a small storage area, and that's all on one side. And then adjacent to that is a large 30 by 40 space that was used that is the space that we're specifically talking about upgrading to make it habitable year round. It's basically a large garage. It was used for equipment storage in the past, but it's not insulated, and there is no bathroom on that floor at all.
Is the storage area and the office space, are they directly connected with one another?
They are not. The large the storage area has a separate entrance. It has a garage door entrance and a door to it, but it is not connected directly to the rest of the building.
Well, it's not detached. I mean, it's all one.
It's not detached. It's physically connected, but there's no doorway to go from one to the other. But no, it is they are physically attached. It is one. If you look at the drawing, the one white roof is all of this space connected together.
Okay. And are you aware of other office space located within the property, not the building itself, but other buildings on the property that are office space?
The landlord operates other businesses, and in the different buildings on the property he uses for his trucking and hauling business, is my understanding. I've never visited them, but that is my understanding.
Will any structural changes at all be made to the building?
Not any exterior structural changes at all, and actually very little of it would be exterior to the building at all. No exterior changes.
Okay, will you be moving or disturbing any soil around the building?
No,
Other than the placement of an HVAC system, will all of your improvements take place within the confines of the exterior walls?
that is correct.
And will there be any activities that take place outside of the building?
No, we do sometimes, in this COVID situation, have some meetings where people are spaced out outside, but typically no.
All right, if you turn to the application, right after the 501c3 certificate, there's a sketch that appears. You have that in
Yes.
front of you?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us what that shows?
So it shows the existing walls and the existing partition at the top left, and it shows the placement of the proposed ADA bathroom.
And again, all of this is within it's all non-structural within the walls of the existing building, correct?
That is correct.
And what specifically will take place in the space if the use is approved today?
We would hold meetings and use it as sort of an office for some of our materials. And there we would be teaching students about building robots. They would program. There's an area they'd be setting up some computers and do some programming, use computer-aided design. And then there would be a workshop where they would do the work under supervision of adults. That we have a 2-adult supervision rule, and usually we have training required for that work in the workshop. But that's what would be happening there.
All right. Has the landlord approved the proposed use?
Yes, he was aware of it, yes.
And is there any need for any additional parking other than what currently exists?
No.
And with respect to the work that would be conducted there, are there any odors, gas, smoke, fumes, vibrations, or loud noises that would occur as part of the use?
No.
Can you tell us generally what times of the day the building will primarily be used by the organization?
It does vary during the year, but weekday meetings are usually from about 6:30 to 9 p.m. to allow for the adult supervisors who work to get there. Some weekends there are meetings, usually starting 8 or 9 a.m. till noon, sometimes through the entire day. During the part of the year that's the busiest would be January, February, March, typically. And then we might also have an occasional Sunday meeting.
So for the majority of the year, the use would not be during normal business hours of typical commercial businesses, correct?
Very rarely.
How many people would typically be in attendance at a meeting?
Including the adult supervision, it could be from like 8 people for a small group meeting to maybe 20.
And can you give us a little bit more specifics as to when the building would be used during the year? Like during what particular parts of the year?
Yes, so from January to March is usually the more intense portion of the build, because the robot that takes the most work, the competitions begin in March and April, and the information about what they're supposed to build isn't released until January, so we call that the build season. For the other programs for the younger students, that starts in the fall, say September, but they don't have quite as intense a season. They may meet maybe 3 evenings a week and occasional Saturdays. So it's through the fall and then ramps up through the winter. In the spring, we're taking things to go visit elementary schools. And in the summertime, we have our off-site camps. So we may be there doing some prep work, but it goes down to maybe 1 or 2 nights a week during that time of the year.
Do you believe that there will be any negative impact on the surrounding areas by your use of the building?
No, we don't think that would be any different than having an office, other than the timing being in the evening.
And given the mission of the organization, do you believe this would have a positive impact on the community?
Yes, in fact, we want to invite students who live in that area. There is a trailer park there, and there are some other communities that are nearby. We're hoping that although it's less visible than our previous location, we do get a lot of interest by being a part of the community and sharing what we do But normally we do a lot of that also by taking it off-site, and having a place to keep our things and prepare is more important. So, but we do think that it would be good for the entire community for us to be able to continue these programs.
And why do you believe this specific building works for your particular use?
Well, it has really good access. It's once you know where it is, it's pretty easy to get there. The parking is ample for the number of cars that we normally have. We have negotiated an affordable rent with the landlord, so that we know that we can be sustainable for some long period of time. And the environment allows us to set up things that support learning by the students of the sort of things that we expect them to be able to learn as a part of this process.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, those are all the questions I have. I just wanted to confirm that the file in evidence will also contain the 1984 case, which includes the existing non-conforming use.
I'm
I
assuming
understand
that
from Ms. Vance is that's in the file.
yeah, yes. Okay.
Thank you then. No further questions.
Does anyone from the public have questions of Ms. Young's testimony? Seeing none, board members, any questions of Ms. Young's testimony? Okay, Mr. Roblack, would you like to call another witness?
No, sir. That's Ms. Young is our only witness.
Okay, very good. So we will open it up now to testimony from other members that are on. So does anyone want to offer testimony? I'll just go through. Mr. Waldauer. Okay. Mr. Neal. Okay. Seeing no additional testimony, and board members, any questions of the testimony one last time here? Okay, very good. Presentation of testimony and evidence is now closed and summations are in order. Mr. Roblack, would you like to offer any final thoughts?
I would. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the board. I'd like to just start by referring to section 158.033C, which addresses the non-conforming uses and the board's ability to modify those uses. And what section 158.033C provides is that where there is no structural alteration, like here, the non-conforming use can be modified to another non-conforming use if the board concludes that the use is of the same or a more appropriate use or classification unless specifically prohibited in the district. So first, to be clear, there are no structural changes, as you've heard. No alterations to the building from a structural perspective are being made. All of the proposed work is finished work within the confines of the existing walls. And second, the proposed use that we're seeking today is not one that is specifically prohibited in the district. So what we essentially have here is an equipment storage space that was added on to in 1984 when there was an office space also approved for the addition. Again, it's all under the same roof. It's all part of the same building. But as I understand it, the county has treated one half of the building as office space and the other half of the building as equipment storage space. We're asking to expand that non-conforming use for the building to the attached garage area as either a business office or training center for the building so that the organization can proceed with its intended purpose. Given the absence of the structural alterations and the requested uses not being prohibited by the code, the board has the authority to approve the request under 158.033C. if three things occur. One, the uses are similar or the proposed use is more compliant with the zoning than the previous use. There is no structural change in the building, and the considerations of a conditional use under 158.133G are met. In addition, 158.033D requires no structural alterations, and it also requires that no additional outside area is impacted, including the need for additional parking. So here, the proposed office for the applicant is similar to the office use granted for the addition into the building in 1984. And in our view, the community-based nature of the organization and its mission support a more appropriate use for that part of the building than the current heavy equipment storage use that currently exists. As you heard from Ms. Young, there are no structural changes, there's no outside area impacted, and no need for additional parking. With respect to the section 158.133G factors, the applicant's use does not adversely affect the public health, safety, security, morals, or general welfare, or result in dangerous traffic conditions. You heard that the plans are consistent from the various submissions in the file with the county's plans. And we think that these factors weigh in favor of the proposed use. The use is really a part-time use throughout the year from an hours in the day standpoint, as well as the days in the year. For obvious reasons, it's not used while the kids are in school during normal business hours. There are no concerns over traffic on the road, as the roads are adequately built and sized to currently accommodate trucks and landscape equipment and cars that currently exist on other parts of the property. And the volume of cars is not a material change, as evidenced in part by the lack of need for additional parking areas. These activities are conducted inside the building. There's no meaningful noise, odors, or other nuisance types of things occurring in the building. And from a community support and mission standpoint, it puts the building to good use for Carroll County residents and students. The school board supports the need for these services, supports the use of this building, as you saw from the file. There hasn't been any public opposition to this use, and there certainly will be no impact on the peaceful enjoyment of residents' homes in the area or property values. So overall, the proposed uses meet the requirements of section 158.033 and the factors under 158.133 that are incorporated into that section. They all weigh in favor of approval, and we respectfully ask the board to approve this request to add the uses of either a business office or training center to Building A at 3233 Murray Road. Thank you.
Okay, the hearing and record of this case is now closed. And in accordance with the Open Meetings Act of Maryland, the board will now consider the case. Board members, start Mr. Simmons.
Mr. Bale?
Yes, we can hear you.
I see absolutely no reason not to approve this. I think it's a noble venture. There are supportive documents in the file from Dr. Lockard, the superintendent, as well as Greg Kahlert and the Kahlert Foundation. I don't need any more testimony than those people saying we support Rose Young, and that's it.
Okay, Dr. Dunkelberger.
I agree with Mr. Simmons, who has stated it eloquently.
Ms. Eckerd.
I have nothing to add. I'm prepared to vote in favor of granting it.
Mr. Wertz.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I think I discovered just a mute button on my microphone, my headphones that I accidentally hit. Yeah, I don't have any objections to the request. I support the request.
Okay, the only thing I want to add is, as far as our deliberations go, the letter from Mr. Voigt recommended against approval of this, and his concerns were this was the second non-conforming use on this property. However, he admitted in his opinion that there was nothing that prohibited two non-conforming uses on this property. And if we go back a couple of years to when Hayden came before us, and I believe it was Mr. Meekins had his construction business there, we justified that because it was a transfer of one non-conforming to another, and the use was definitely less intensive. And I don't see where this is going to add to the intensity of the use of this property, as evidenced when we did our site visits last week. We passed no vehicles on Murray Road, and there was not a flurry of activity back there. We were there at about 9:30 or 9:45 that morning. So again, Mr. Voigt, I'm not going to speak for him, but out of abundant caution, I'm sure, said that it's not allowed in the code, but it's not prohibited. And the one thing I would like to say is, so this, I don't want this to be a precedent-setting case, but we're talking a very large property there with multi uses. We have a trailer park, a trash hauling business, and then this proposed use of the property. And it's not like it's a postage stamp size property. There's more than adequate space on the property. There's even a grass landing strip for an airport. So having said all of this, you know, I don't know where we stand as far as the code goes, but in this particular case, the space that is available would not restrict or have competing uses with the use on this property. Okay, board members, do we have any, do we have a motion? Ms. Record.
Move that case 6266 that we approve a second use.
For a robotics school office, would you include that in your motion?
Yes. Sure.
Okay, do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, very good. We have a motion and a second to allow a second non-conforming use of a robotic school office on the subject property. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. The motion carries 5-0. Our oral decision will become final upon a written decision, which will be issued within 30 days unless otherwise extended by this board. The board's decision may be appealed by filing a petition for judicial review with the clerk of the circuit court for Carroll County in accordance with the provisions of Chapter 200, Title 7 of the Maryland Rules of Procedure. The appeal must be filed within 30 days of the date of the board's written decision. I'd like to thank everyone for their participation in this hearing this morning, and we will call the BZA meeting adjourned.